Hi, welcome back to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. I'm Doug O'Brien, your host. And today we have in the program David Gonzalez. David Gonzalez, Doctor of Arts, is a director, a poet, a storyteller, a playwright, a performer. He's an amazing, amazing guy. He's also a musician. Doesn't say that up there, but I'm living up here in the Hudson Valley, and I mentioned his name to some people. Said, "Oh yeah, the guitarist." I said, "Okay, I didn't know that." But he is the first person I ever knew of who was a professional storyteller. And it's like, a professional storyteller. I didn't know you could do that, but apparently you can, and he does, and he tells stories all over the world. And I'm thrilled to have him here on our Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Here we go. You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. David Gonzalez.
Hey, Doug O'Brien.
It's delightful to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Come on.
So you just got back from where? Istanbul?
I was in Paris and Istanbul. Yes. Talk about complexity and beauty and story. Istanbul, Constantinople. Istanbul, Constantinople. What's going on there? I went to the Hagia Sophia, the famous mosque, which I didn't know was built by Constantine in like the 4th century as a church. And it's one of these places with layers and layers and layers. Awesome food, beautiful music. And, yeah, it was cool.
So you really, truly have traveled the world as a storyteller. And I just want to hear all about that. They're just, I started this podcast a few years ago because I was looking at, how people coach and thinking, NLP and hypnosis and things are kind of essential coaching skills, I thought. And much of Ericksonian hypnosis comes from the art of storytelling, Erickson's application of it. There are many applications of storytelling. I've been doing some storytelling at the Moth, where we tell personal, narratives of something that happened to us. And Erickson told therapeutic metaphors in order to elicit change from the client. Tell me about your form of storytelling. You do like Odysseus in the underworld, and you do these magnificent one-man plays, really, in a way. Could you tell us about your approach to storytelling?
Well, that's interesting you use the word one-man plays. Sometimes I refer to what I do as poor theater, P-O-O-R theater, in that, the whole orchestra is in the voice, the script is in this narrative, the choreography is in the body, the ambience of the theater is in sort of the mood you set, So I come to the work that I do out of a love of music, out of a love of movement, out of a love of poetry. And I had a kind of spiritual crisis in my 20s where I was been a pilgrim like many of us were back in the day or still are. And nothing ever panned out in terms of like catching my imagination to believe in something. And I read Hero with a Thousand Faces in my 20s. Yeah. And it was like, whoop, boom, there it is. There is nothing to believe in. The experience is about the experience. So I took a deep dive into Campbell and Young and Robert Johnson and those kinds of folks. And I felt like that was like a lifesaver, literally a lifesaver, psychically and spiritually.
Nice.
And so I moved from music and movement, which I've been doing a lot of, and started exploring and playing with stories. And I just found just my own delight, just the sheer joy of, making a story come alive. And I would volunteer in little schools and libraries. And so it was very organic in a sense in terms of like how it came together, but it also was really sort of, again, psychically and spiritually critical juncture in terms of releasing some of the things I had been brought up with, and even this notion that we had to find a path and dedicate yourself to some kind of spiritual discipline. It's a great inspiration in it. So anyway, it's been a long journey with lots of different stops along the way.
Cool, it's beautiful. And so, how do you decide on a story that you can tell? By the way, you volunteered in early elementary schools and libraries and stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean, when I was first doing this, I would just
Just like a storytelling, like, let's
yeah,
go.
I'm gonna come. I'm just gonna tell stories. Can you give me a classroom? I'm in my 20s and beads and bell bottoms
Nice.
and you know, there's nothing like kids will kick your ass for the truth. Uh, so anyway, I did a lot of that.
That's neat. I
Uh,
was in a traveling little troupe for kids called the Corner Store. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I like that title.
You ever heard of the Corner? No. Anyway, we traveled around the different schools and we did shows, and we would like the pancake. I've forgotten. There's this show about the pancake. Anyway, we had very brightly colored costumes, and we danced around and played instruments and did little shows, little stories.
In other words, we're cut from the same cloth, you and I.
A little bit. Ours wasn't volunteer. We were paid. That was a paid gig, dude. I was getting big money. I was like $25 a show or something. You know, it was good. Anyway, that's a story into itself. But how do you go about picking your shows when you do things like, you know, Orpheus in the underworld and that sort of stuff? How do you?
Yeah, let's see. That's a good question, and there are various answers to that depending on what project we're talking about. Because over the length of my career, things have really changed. But I can go back, like Orpheus and Eurydice. I remember being given the Metamorphosis, Ovid's Metamorphosis, and these kind of the Greek mythology and that whole pantheon was really opaque to me, and all these, you know, Roman gods and all this Greek, like I didn't really feel it. It always felt kind of abstract to me, and even with careful readings through, you know, through Robert Johnson and others, it always felt like this vocabulary I didn't flow with me. I didn't get it, you know. But when I read Orpheus, a musician who marries Eurydice, a dancer, they're separated, and he goes on this quest, a failed quest. But there's something in that story that was really compelling to me. As a musician, and as a musician yourself, you know there's always longing and like questing in just the act of playing. You know, am I getting to the sound? Am I making the shape? Am I getting, and what is expressed in music? If, you know, like, I mean, I'm not going to say what it is, but for me, it's often a yearning quality, you know? And so Orpheus's journey to reconnect with Eurydice, who's the embodiment of movement, grace, connection to the earth, this beautiful tense dichotomy of sound and body, you know, earth and light, or, you know, there's all these polarities. I got really deep into the Orpheus myth. My dissertation is on Orpheus, and I used to lead all these workshops, and I performed that story, you know, numerous times. So it came to me because in that instance, I wanted to investigate the meaning and unpack the meaning for myself in the story. I was perplexed and curious. So, and that's true with a lot of the bigger stories that I've told. The Frog Bride would one a story that I originally heard from Robert Bly. The Handless Maiden, which was in one of Robert Johnson's books. Like in the telling, there's an excavation, and in the excavation, there's a reveal. And in re-excavating, it reveals more and more. And that's what these great myths do. You know, they have such balance and such depth that we keep coming back to them and reflect and learn more and more. So that choice, and that those are kind of like bigger biographical, personal kind of curiosities that draw it, and investments. And sometimes it's just like, you know, when I'm creating a show, like, for example, during the first Trump administration and the run up to that, the assault on truth was so horrific and disquieting and disorienting. And I have a platform nationally to be in front of young people. And I remember this story that I had read years ago. It came like out of the unconscious. Doug, you know this kind of thing. It's just like, whoom, it appears. Why am I remembering this story? It's
Hmm.
the boy who could sing pictures. The kid can only tell the truth, and it happens through song. And when he sings, whatever he sings appears in the picture, in the air. And, I said, you know what? This is the time for that. So this is a very different kind of choosing. It was very much like, there's a time now where this story can do some really good work.
Nice.
So it really varies.
Yeah. Wow. It's so cool. So cool. So how do you, I mean, a lot of storytellers, like as an example, when I do the moth story slams and stuff that I've done, you are required to stand in front of the microphone. You cannot touch the microphone. You just have to stand there and tell your story. This is how it goes, and this is where I'm telling a story. So it's really dependent a lot on the story. And, of course, you can use your voice, but it's not, nobody's acting things out there. Nobody's really doing that. And there's no, big acting gestures, that sort of stuff. Have you ever thought, I'm just going to get up there and read a story and just tell a story? Or is it for you, is it always embodied somehow in your telling?
Yeah, I've done a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
And there's something beautiful about that. The way I describe it is kind of a spectrum um, of how much, and this is true for every performer, but like even in every performance, a kind of profile of how much voice, gesture, movement. We're all in a different. I had a friend, John, may he rest in peace, who basically sat on his hands because he was really physically awkward, and he knew it, and he focused all his creativity into these poetics. So and his voice wasn't even all that, whatever, colorful or expressive, but his language was so gorgeous, lush, inviting. You didn't need it, you didn't need it. My natural, my way, it's just very natural to me, is to be physical and dramatic, and hopefully not melodramatic, because forever my background, my interests, whatever my blah, 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 is really kind of embodied in movement. Like I went to Tanglewood the other day to hear Beethoven, and everyone's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I'm digging this. But once I started just quietly, subtly to move, the music it went from like black and white to like massive 3D.
Really?
So for me, just for me, movement like enlivens things. It's a way of knowing. It's a way of being in the world more. So of course I bring that into my work a lot. I had a great pleasure back in October. I was invited to direct Astor Piazzolla's opera Maria de Buenos Aires. I was not on stage, and it was a tango opera. So I got to work with a fantastic choreographer and like 8 outrageous dancers. So this whole like space of movement as the vehicle of expression was just like, that was a dream come true.
That's so cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
So when you teach storytelling, and I assume you have done workshops on how to tell a story, how to teach storytelling, do you teach the movement part of it as well? Do you ask, do you elicit that from people? How do you evoke that in people?
Well, usually what I'll do is kind of like what we're talking about now, but I would demonstrate. I will show, like, this is, I'll tell you a story, and whether it's Orpheus or something else.
Okay.
And then I kind of come up with, years ago, I went to a rainbow gathering. People don't know what a rainbow gathering is. It's kind of like the progenitor of sort of, before there was a Burning Man, there was a rainbow gathering.
I've been to at least one.
Yeah. Well, I went to one in my 20s in West Virginia. in Monongahela National State Park, and it's 3 rivers come together. And it's just this spectacular place. So the word confluence became a really important word for me. And so when I teach storytelling, I call it the confluence model. And we have these streams of text, we have these streams of sound, and we have a stream of gesture, and we have kind of a stream of imagination, some kind of way that it gathers. And so when I teach, I'll say, well, here's just an experience. Here's just me telling a story. Let's separate out these components and sort of dive into those streams. So yeah, we'll do a whole thing on movement, but yeah, it starts with like awareness and coming into different kind of vocabularies. And how can you tell a story only in movement? For example, and of course, a lot is in the expressive part of the body, the face. But what if it was just in your hands? Or what if you could, how do you bring it into your body? And it's always a reach, and especially folks who are not familiar with this, it feels bizarre. But it starts to open up new channels. And the same thing with voice, the range of the voice, the colors of the voice, pressure and tone, and really sort of unpacking it. And then with text also.
What do you mean by pressure?
Intensity, which is different from dynamics. We get, this sort of like a pressure, the intensity, moving forward with the voice, and then that, or I am bringing you into this meadow with me, Doug O'Brien. Really getting into the weeds around what are within each of these streams, and then start to bring them, back into conversation with each other. And each of us has that naturally, it's a natural thing. But to give some vocabulary to it, pull it apart, and then put it back together.
Very cool. So I'm curious about that, because the variety of even words for those things that you have regarding voice, intensity, tempo, timbre, volume, dynamics, these things. How much of your storytelling do you think was influenced by your musical background? Because you have a pretty extensive one. Your doctorate is in music therapy, is it? Or is that your master's?
No, they're both. Both in music. Okay. Music, Ellington, music is my mistress. So yeah, it's hard to quantify that in any way. I don't like you. I mean, it's just like music to me is, if I was on a desert island and I could only bring one art form, it would be music.
Which 10 albums? No, you don't have to answer that.
Oh God, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, music is there. I mean, of course, the sense of flow, and all the vocabularies of the vocabulary of music is really important. And finally, this is all about enchantment. That's the word for me. Is this a liminal space of possibility and transmission and connection to an imagined world? How do we, as storytellers, create an aesthetic object, a luminous aesthetic object of a story, an imagination, an imaginative world, a world of the imagination that is infused with enchantment and wonder, so that it becomes not only accessible, but a real invitation to contemplation and to feeling into it. And for me, music is the sublime art of that. So my inspirations as a storyteller are not storytellers. My inspiration of storytelling is Coltrane and Poulenc and Bach and Alan Holdsworth and like great musicians, Jesse Norman. Like that's the bar for me.
I don't quite understand what you mean. So could you expound on how are
The
those?
bar, the bar for me, the
Yeah.
level of communicative power, of craft, of commitment, of daring, of nuance. The bar for me comes from great musicians. The great musicians. That's my bar, and I'll never get there. But I'm nourished and inspired by, when I hear Cannonball Adderley on his alto. It's like, how is this humanly possible? When I hear Camille Saint-Saëns, or I hear one of my new favorite composers, John Luther Adams, like the level of subtlety, power, engagement, wonder, enthrallment, that's what I want to be able to do. And
okay, cool.
Yeah.
But not in music. They're your inspiration for a story. So you're trying to take that same sort of wonder and enthrallment, nuance, subtlety, power into your storytelling.
Yeah.
How do I tell the story of I don't know, any of your stories won't work, but how do you tell that story with that degree of Cannonball Adderley in there? How do you do that with
Yeah, if you can answer that, I mean that's like mission. That's like
yeah.
We're on a family friendly podcast, so right? Use some Bronx language right here, but that's the mission is to aspire to that kind of to aspire to that.
Cool. Love it. It's interesting because as a musician. By the way, I also studied a little bit of music therapy when I was over in England for years. I was almost went into. We might have known each other. Our paths might have crossed a lot earlier if I had gone that path.
Were you at Emerson or at what is it? What school?
I went to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, but
I had friends who went there when we taught there.
Yeah, and I was introduced to the Nordhoff Robbins people.
Those are my people.
They're amazing people.
Those are my people. Clive Robbins was a person who's my teacher and became a personal friend of mine.
No, I really, the only problem with it was that I'd spent a year in England. I was miserable. Their program was in Germany, so I would have had to go like for another 2 years. I didn't speak a lick of German, and it would have been another 2 years away from home. And it's like I can't do it. I just can't go.
Well, we're gonna have to hang and talk about all that because
it's amazing work. It is. I love that work. It's incredible. But anyway, getting back to storytelling, and when it comes to music, for a long time, I had terrible stage fright when it came to performance. It's probably not completely my fault. There are these, difficult challenges at school that you had to do. There were these competitions, and it was like you're judged on it and your future depended on it. So I was like, yeah, it's rather nerve-wracking. But it didn't wear off for a long time until somewhat recently, honestly, where I was talking with another friend of mine, Harry Pickens, who said that when he goes up to perform, he doesn't feel nervous. He's saying to himself, like, I want to share this beautiful song with these people. I want to share this beautiful music with my friends. I'm here to experience this together. Hey, check this out. Look at this. Isn't this beautiful? Sort of thing. And it seems to me that's kind of what you're doing in storytelling. You're saying, hey, I want to create this enthralling, beautiful piece and share it with you. And it's create that enchantment of the story. Is that an accurate representation? Is that what you feel like you're doing or not?
Yeah, that is. Although I want to add to that.
Okay.
And that is like purpose. Like how does this practice connect to purpose?
Okay.
And I think that's really an important thing because when I'm coaching folks and working with people in this, like, why do you care about this? Why do this? Why is it this? Where does it really come from? What's the furnace beneath this this pursuit? And so I've had to ask that myself. And for me, there's a bunch of different reasons, but one of them is around feeling powerless as a young person in the
Mhm.
world, powerless to civil rights on TV at night, powerless to the Vietnam, the body bags coming back on the black and white TV, powerless in, uh, the racism and all the stuff. And what do you do with that restlessness that comes out of feeling powerless? Because it's not met with, um, we don't surrender. It's just in the body. This uh, even as a kid. So I often will say, like, what is driving the choice? Because that is what's going to make the work of the craft doable.
Mm.
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
A lot of failure, and being in front of people is hard. And how do you make it so that it does what you want it to do? Right? It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not a cakewalk. We mess up. We got to come back. But so connecting to this, like, purpose, and like I use this terminology, this furnace, like the why of it. I think that's just like critical. And for me personally, it goes back to the sense of powerlessness. And I'm thinking about young people today, man,
Mhm.
my own kids who are in their 30s, the disorientation of the current times.
So what are you doing with that purpose? You are attempting in your storytelling to help other people find their purpose, or do you have a purpose in
Yeah, no, I've been down that road. What I'm interested in is creating an experience of imaginative, compassionate, imaginative joining, so that it's not David's mind heart coming alive. It's this story that comes alive. And in that, listeners, the audience, it's like a waking dream. I'm in this,
Mhm.
and it's infused with this humanity. I'm in this dream world. And of course, when kids and stuff, there's a lot of laughter, and there's a lot of engagement, blah, blah, blah. But the real mojo in it is to make a world come to life that is not connected to my ego, but is serving some, jewel. And that comes back to your question about what stories do you choose, you know,
Okay.
and when and why, and if you bring those to life. Because to do it well, it's a lot of, for me, like, I'll spend a year or even more working on a story, and then I bring in musicians and lighting and video, and like I really build up. It's a commitment. So I choose, if I'm going to really do it, I got to really want to believe in that story.
Mhm.
I did a version of Sleeping Beauty years ago, because all the Sleeping Beauties I ever heard, she was passive, and it was really not Sleeping Beauty's story. And so I wrote a rhymed verse version of Sleeping Beauty in which she is a badass and she directs her own story. And it was set, you appreciate this, it's set to the Bach's Goldberg variations,
Oh, yeah.
plays live on stage.
Played live on stage.
Yes.
Wow, that's not too easy.
No, and we worked really, really hard to integrate. I think there were 4 or 5 of the variations played in either their entirety or in sections, and then other composed music that is based on the Goldberg variations.
Wow.
So something like 500,000 kids have heard that.
Wow.
But
Cool.
that project took 2 years to work on, and we failed, and we stayed on it, and it finally found its
Wow.
flow. So choosing the story is really important. And just to come back to your question, like, what is the hope in there? I hope that if I choose a story that I'm so curious about, that I feel wonder in, that has some kind of psycho-spiritual jewel that can be unpacked by the listener without me
Mhm.
what it is, and I can bring it to life so that it's available, then like that's as much as I can do.
That's so cool. Would you say that you were influenced much by Maxine Greene? Because the first time I ever heard of you, you were a work of art, David.
Oh, you were a piece. You were a piece of. How's it go?
You were a piece of art. You were a work of art for Lincoln Center, where my wife was a teaching artist, and much of the teaching artistry that was done there was based on the philosophy of Maxine Greene, where you create a personal engagement with work of art for the observers of the art, or the observers of the art form. You as a teaching artist create a passionate and personal engagement with the work of art. Would you say that what you've just described as your desire to create this thing where it's not about you, it's about the experience of the art form, that's informed at all by this Maxine Greene approach?
Maxine was a mentor. I don't think that my approach to art making was influenced by Maxine. My understanding of what I do was deeply informed by Maxine.
Okay.
My appreciation for aesthetic experience in personal transformation and in education is rooted in Maxine's thinking. And Maxine gave me one of the greatest gifts of my life. Tell the quick story. I got invited to Lincoln Center Institute, and I declined. I don't like moi. What? Like, this is reserved for the titans of the greats. And I accepted the invitation against my better judgment. And the way it worked then was that the teachers would come for a week or two, and they would see a work of art, whether it's a dance piece or a theater piece or music or whatever. And they just see it cold and then go work on it with teaching artists for a few days, getting like, what was your experience? Unpacking it, try it this way. How would you feel it? How would you do it? What questions do you have? And then they see the same piece of art again a few days later with these sort of eyes that have been sensitized. And right. So I go and I do Orpheus, day one.
Yep.
I leave. I come back 3 days later or 4 days later to do the second performance at Juilliard. And there's this big banner with a quote from Maxine Greene, who I'd only known as the queen of aesthetic philosophy. The quote says something like, David Gonzalez made a world come alive, an enactment of art making, a blah, 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 like that. I'm like, what the hell just happened? That's part A. I'm like, oh shit. And then I walk to the elevator to go up to the studio, and this elevator door opens. It's like big elevator. It's like 20 people in it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Middle of the elevator is Maxine. And the doors open. I'm there. And she says, and there he is. And like 20 teachers start applauding. I felt like I just stepped into a coronation, which my whole imposter syndrome thing was through the roof. Anyway, I'm telling you this because Maxine saw in me something I did not see in myself, or value even. Her language for understanding arts and transformation and education, just spectacular. Particularly, I mean, I know you know this, but for your listeners, the connection between having an open mind that is infused or an open mind through the arts, that is questioning mind and inquiring mind, is critical to a functioning democracy, because you're not going to be coerced, you're not going to be manipulated, you're going to ask questions. You come to each moment with what is this? And so there's a kind of a socio-political grounding that I've taken from Maxine in this work, which is not partisan. It's just about democracy and
Yeah.
citizenship. So Maxine is
And,
important.
and the importance of the arts in all doing that. It's not like you have the important things like the math and the social studies or the science or whatever. Those are the important things. And then maybe if there's time, we'll sing a song and do some arts. It's like, no, arts and create that questioning aspect of things. And that's the beautiful thing about the work that I've applied from my wife being that teaching artist with Maxine to my own form of Ericksonian hypnosis, where you observe before you interpret. So you see the art, you see the patient, you see the client, you see the customer, you see them as an individual and see what is unique about them and different about them. You observe before you jump to any conclusions and say, oh, I see what the problem is. They've got this or they've got that. You don't jump to a diagnosis immediately. You observe and then begin to interpret and question that way. So I think it's really vitally important to learn how to do that, and the arts are a gateway for being able to do that. So I think that's, again, key to a functioning democracy, is to be able to question and to observe and to really get to the heart of issues before you jump to any sort of conclusions.
Yeah, I think, I love what you just said, because it's also the key to mental health.
Right.
To like, where am I in this?
Yeah.
What is happening here? I just
spent
some time in Salt Lake City and learned about some of the cult traditions around there and other places, and this sense of liberation to lead one's life according to how it's in alignment, and the freedom to choose on all levels. I think the kind of rapport you're talking about that comes from someone really listening deeply. I got to tell you, in my early life, I studied polarity therapy. And there was a whole stream in there around NLP. And they showed us videos of Erickson. And one of my first therapists was at the New York NLP Center down on Prince Street.
Right. Annie Linden?
Come again?
Annie Linden?
I didn't. She was not a therapist of mine, but David Feitelstein.
Oh, David Feitelstein, sure, yeah.
And yeah, he was my therapist for a couple of years.
Cool.
He's really cool. It's great.
I know David well. Moved to Santa Fe. I haven't heard from him in a while. I'm not sure what he's up to.
Oh, that's nice. We got to hang out more, you and
I. We seem to know a lot of people. And one thing we will be doing shortly together is the Woodstock Storytelling Festival. I'm not sure that's the actual title, but that's Woodstock's Festival of Storytelling or something. It'll be coming up in October of 2025. You and I and several other luminaries. Oh God, to put myself on the same level as you is funny. But yeah, some other amazing people, Laura Sims, et cetera, will be there. What are you planning on doing that? You say you take a year to develop a piece?
You know what? I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, well, me neither.
No, I mean, I've got a repertoire of stuff. I'm not going to spend a year, because I don't have a year.
No, you don't.
I actually was thinking, I don't do a lot of this personal storytelling. I mean, I have and I can, but I don't do a lot.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about ghosts and angels that I've experienced, real people that I've met who are ghosts, and real people who I've met who are angels. And I have a real idea. So I'm thinking about shaping that out.
That's cool.
I've also written a couple of pieces that are more personal that I'm thinking about bringing into performance level. I'm not sure yet. I have a couple of, if I don't have time, I'll just do some of my old standbys. Were you there last time? It was
No.
9 years ago. Yeah, it was really a lovely experience. It's going to be great.
Yes, it was. Our good friend Peter Blum has started it 9 years ago, and after it was, I think it was you said, let's give him a round of applause, so we'll do it again. He said, no, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah. He said, yeah, I'm out. No, yeah, never.
It was too hard. But then we started thinking about it, and then somebody said, well, how about if I pay you? And he said, I'll think about it. So that'd be good. So it was it. Yeah, thank goodness. We are doing it again, and it's going to be really, really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be quite the event. I mean, really amazing group of people. I'm not going to start naming them because I will fail at naming everybody, and that just isn't good. But
no, he's pulled together a wonderful program.
It really is.
Earth, and yeah, I mean, it's going to be cool. What is it? It's the 20. Is there programming on the 24th or just the 25th and 26th? I can't remember.
There'll be a Friday night on the 24th. There'll be some performances, but I believe you'll be out of town or something. So I wanted you to kick it off, but I guess you'll be on the Saturday night, the 25th. And then
when are you going to be on?
I haven't gotten a slot yet.
What are you going to do?
Well, I'm not sure, but it's interesting because when I started doing this, I mostly teach, right? I teach classes. I teach NLP and hypnosis and sleight of mouth and behavioring techniques. And I've also taught piano lessons for years. I was a musician, piano teacher, and I made my money teaching piano lessons. So I was thinking of telling some stories about those years and teaching piano lessons, and talk about the confluence, if you will, of the of music and storytelling and how that can be informed. And so kind of teach a segment as well as telling stories. So I'll get some concepts about story structure and flow and musical concepts to storytelling. So it'll be sort of half teaching and half telling and half performing. I'll bring my piano out and play as well.
You're going to bring the piano?
Yeah.
So there's going to be 3 halves?
Yeah.
It's really fun to chat with you because that you have such deep music background and this piece and the story piece. I mean, there's so much confluence between us, my brother. Yeah.
It's funny.
It's been a great joy for me to connect with Peter and the local folks. I moved upstate in the Hudson Valley, I guess 13 years ago. Yeah, it's my final resting place.
We'll see about that. I don't see you doing much resting. But you're from what, the Bronx?
I grew up in the Bronx. Yeah. Raised my kids in sort of Rockland County, Nyack area, and then moved up here in the mid 2000s, in the 2011. Yeah.
Well, I'm from Buffalo, so that's nothing at all like the Bronx. But yeah, my wife and I have a lovely little place up here, as you know, and we also have an apartment in Brooklyn still. So she's still working down there at Lincoln Center, teaching artistry, still doing that sort of stuff, in addition to her teaching of clown and other things in other parts of the city.
You guys are
lucky.
I'm leaving the expletives out, but yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Of course, I've been Gene forever, so
I know you have. She was again mentored by Maxine Greene, so it was fun to talk about that with you. But I'm really so excited to have you on this program. And folks, I don't know if I mentioned that he's in the book. There he is. That's a younger version of him. That's when he takes his bandana off. What's his hair look like? But he's in this storytelling book, User's Guide. So it's a pleasure and privilege to have you here. And I just can't believe I'm going to be sort of sharing a stage with you in October.
Oh man, come on! It's you. All that you lived and all that you breathe and know, and your heart is so integrated with your mind. How can it be anything but a joy to be together, man? It's all it is.
That's what it is.
That's all it is.
So, David Gonzalez, if people want to find out more about you, where did they do that?
On the internet, it's easy. My last name is with an EZ at the end, and so my website is davidgonzalez.com, and just a lot of stuff out there. I'll tell you about a new project just quickly before we go.
Yeah.
Two new things I've been working hard on. One of them is called Space Time. It's a collaboration with an astrophysicist and a remarkable musician. And it's this universe story. And I've written poetry and stories that connect with its live performance piece. We'll be touring nationally starting next year. But the website is spacetimeshow.org.
Okay.
And the other thing is a film that I just directed and produced called Redemption Time. And that is Jimmy Santiago Baca, Chicano Apache poet from the Southwest, and Christian Howes, a remarkable jazz violinist, both of whom were incarcerated. And I made this project where they spoke to each other, and we created a performance piece and filmed it, and then added a lot of really interesting B-roll. Anyway, that's Redemption Time, and it's start to getting into festivals and stuff over the next couple of years.
Wow.
That website is redemptiontimeshow.com. So spacetimeshow.org and redemptiontimeshow.com. And that's all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we'll put that in the program notes so people have an easier time finding that for us. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, appreciate you.
All right,
David Gonzalez, be well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye now.
This has been the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you again. Hope to see you again real soon. Come back next week when we have another gripping and exciting episode of the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And if you want to, you can find out more about us, each and every one of us, at essentialcoachingskills.com. Thanks.